Today I'm going to cover how I took this design idea and made it into a physical item. This design was created for the Deluxe pendant Patreon tier, and I wanted to show you guys the different ways that I arrange elements and play with ideas before I decide and ultimately finalize a design before bringing it to my studio and making it reality. The first thing we're going to do is lay down the rectangle on our work surface. The cleanliness of the shape and the size of the rectangle will directly correlate to how we will eventually be able to configure our components on the base, while also giving us a reference for the size of the components so that we can accurately represent the concept design. So here I've taken my stringer and used one of the long arms to set my iron bricks on top of. For my first 90 bend, I did a heat sink, wait, second heat, and then bend, and then did the same thing on the second 90-degree bend. I'm doing some minor adjusting just to make sure that everything is nice and straight. Then I'll put in my initial heat sink, then I'll wait, another heat sink, and then I will bend it. And then I'll take a micro stringer. I will add glass to bridge the gap between the top and the arm of the rectangle, and I'll just fill it in and then go with my hand torch and smooth it out. This color is called Lemon Drop. It can be a particularly difficult color to work with if it's not used in the right chemistry. It wants to be over oxidized. It does not want a lot of propane heating it. It wants a lot of oxygen cooling the surface while minimal propane heats the interior. So just remember that. So for this, I'm making a teardrop shape because I want it to look very abstract. And then I'm gonna go in, heat a mass, and then press it into that teardrop at an angle to make kind of a bulge or like a shoulder. After that initial bulging shape has been created, then I'm gonna let gravity just naturally pull it down and away from that teardrop shape. And then I'm going to create another teardrop shape by allowing gravity to simply pull the smaller mass on the end of that shape away and down from the larger portion of that glass. Here I'm adding a bridge, and that's because I'm gonna go in with my hand torch and I'm gonna let that glass from the middle section between the bulge and the tip of my new teardrop, I want to fall down and away on both sides. So I want the end of that teardrop at the top to get a little bit larger, and then I want the bottom of the bulge to get slightly larger as well. And what that's going to do is make it look like a little bit more like a lava lamp effect, more like a glob, and that's what I want. Remember, when making any abstract shape, if you put any creases in it, natural or unnatural, to go in and slightly work them to make sure that they're not going to hold any surface tension and eventually crack. Here I've made one of my little dots, and what we're going to do is take it off the end of that clear puntee and we're going to attach it to the frame. I've already put on the abstract blob, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start attaching the smaller dots. The different shapes and sizes of these attachments are supposed to represent the way that the wax moves while a lava lamp is running. The way that I like to make my teardrop shapes is to gather back and down into the rod until the end of my gather is the size of the end of the teardrop that I desire, and then bring my working rod vertical behind the face of the gather and allow the teardrop to naturally fall down and away from your working rod. Always make sure that the component is the right size before you attach it. You might find that you need to either resize the component completely, or that you need to maneuver the component in a way you didn't perceive initially by creating one or more bridges before fully establishing a thicker weld at the best point of contact. The best way that I have found to make a smaller gather off of a larger diameter rod is to pull a slightly smaller stringer than the gather that I want to create, gather back down into that stringer and then detach it from the end of that stringer. That way you're not distorting the shape of the gather that you've made, and you're also not pulling off a bunch of excess off the end of that rod. And you might think, hey, I saw that you had a bunch of excess on the end of that rod where you have pulled down that stringer. Well, that's because I'm going to make a bunch of gathers off of that one pull. If you're just doing one gather, just do a smaller pull. And that's how I made all 6 of these dots. So now we're going to start making the elongated oval shapes. Don't worry about my mouth, I'm eating hard candy. So what I'm going to do is take my stringer and allow the natural gravity and heat in combination to give a slight rounded effect on both arms of my oval, and then just do a nice tight pinch on one side of that oval, and then handle up to where I've pinched it, and then bring those 2 open ends together and then weld them shut. And that's going to give you an oval. It's going to be nice and easy and fast. The thing that you need to consider is that maybe making the smallest one first will be easier, and then go up from there, because you don't want to make your largest one and then try and fit smaller ones in, because you'll notice that maybe it will be too difficult to make them smaller. So you might as well make what you consider to be your smallest piece and then work out from around there. So this is like pretty tiny. And for the next 2, what I'm going to do is go to my working surface. I'm going to trace out the size of that smallest component, and then I'm going to be able to measure ovals around that shape to make sure that they stack out correctly at the right increment. These small adjustments that you see me doing is where I'm taking some heat. I'm letting it set into the arm of the oval and lightly and slowly working in these arms so that they're nice and smooth and they flow nicely, while also constricting them slightly to make a nice tight pinching shape, because these ovals aren't rounded, they're a little sharper towards the interior for the smallest components, because I want them to look really nice and crisp. So now that we have the smallest component done, we're going to move on to the middle-sized component. And what I've done here is I've attached a stringer to another stringer, and I have added 2 blocks to hold it so that I can then heat and then work around the size of that oval. And then when I have the 2 arms meeting at the end, then I'm going to take a pair of my tweezers and I am just going to hit it and knock them off of both sides, because what I'm going to do is then I'm going to take it to the opposite side, heating and tacking just like that, and then I'm going to take it into the flame, and I'm going to close off that open side by welding those 2 arms together, and then heating and adjusting those arms until they look nice and smooth and even and flowing evenly all the way around that oval, like I did with the first one. The only difference between this one and that one and the first one was I made this one on the kiln shelf, as opposed to letting it naturally fall while I'm holding it in the air. And so this one is gonna be our middle-sized one. Now, I did forget to film the largest one, but here's me attaching that middle-sized oval to the bottom of our rectangle in between our large mass and the exterior of the rectangle. I've attached my first point of connection, and I'm going in with my second bridge. I'm going to heat up and fully weld in that second bridge first, because I don't want that component to move around on me. And then after that second bridge is fully welded in, then I will go back down to that base bridge, or what you call your base anchor, and fully weld that one in so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And the last portion of the design that I filmed was me taking my green rod and making a dot on the end of that oval. It's just an accent dot. It's for aesthetic and design purposes. I'm holding my project upside down and then right side up, because I'm letting the mass of the dot naturally flow back and forth to make a nice round shape. I decided that it was slightly too small, so I added a little bit more glass. Did the same thing, held it upside down, then right side up, left to right, let the mask fall naturally down and around in a circle. I didn't end up filming the last 2 attachments on the top, but they are like the ones before. You just do your initial anchor bridge and then your second bridge, weld both of them in, and then you're done. Thanks for stopping in, thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you guys next time.